Good evening and welcome to Beyond the Front Page, a show for the fall 2017 semester here at KU Community College and broadcast on Spectrum, Verizon Fios, the Auburn Regional Media Access, better known as ARMA, as well as Win 89. I'm your host, Guy Cosentino. The Auburn Large School District decided roughly 6 years ago to close West Middle School, built nearly 77 years ago on the city's west side, and consolidate its middle school operations at East Middle with its adjacent Holland Stadium, renaming it Auburn Junior High. The worry for many in the community was that West Middle would sit idly, as did Central High School in the middle of the city of Auburn, and deteriorate for many years, in fact decades, until a group of investors made the risky decision to come in and renovate it and came up with the brave concept of Health Central. The district actively looked for users for the building and sooner than expected had talks with our two guests tonight, Liz Smith, the Executive Director of Unity House, and Susan KIMMEL of 2+4 Management. Earlier this year, the district was able to transfer the property and they were able to get funding in place to renovate the building. We've asked them on to give us an update on where they are in the renovation process and talk about the plans for it, including about the clock tower, the most often asked question I got leading up to this. Welcome.
Thank you.
Great to have you both here.
How are you?
Good. We're delighted to have you here. So what is being proposed at West Middle?
West Mill is actually being converted into apartments, a total of 59 apartments, 48 one-bedroom and 11 two-bedroom apartments. The auditorium space, which if you have been in it, is absolutely gorgeous. It is staying intact, and we actually have it under, not quite under contract, but the Merry-Go-Round Theater has committed to using the space and releasing the space, so we're very excited about that. And in addition, Unity House will be moving their corporate offices into the building. So we're pretty excited about the project.
And right now you're at the Blue Star building mainly on Wright Avenue.
That's correct. We've been there for about 9 years.
Okay.
We've added space the first few years, but we continue to grow, and there's not enough offices for us there anymore.
And for the longest time, in fact, when you started with the agency, you were at the Case Mansion.
That's correct,
okay.
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit, just some basics. So you're going to have some singles and some doubles there. Are these market rate apartments?
These are affordable apartments.
Okay, so what's the difference between market rate and affordable?
So affordable apartments are below the street rents, so they're cheaper than they would be at another property, but they also have income restrictions. So those that apply in the building have to be below 60% of the area median income for Cayuga County. So it's really targeted to those that are earning a living, that have income, because there's no rent subsidies. They have to be able to afford the rent, but it makes it a much more affordable setting.
So how are you made whole from a financial point of view if they're at that rental level?
So the way that we're able to offer those below market rents is we're getting our funding through the state of New York in the form of supportive housing opportunity funds. And that's a 1% interest only mortgage. Okay. So with mortgage rates now in the low 4s, the savings on the interest is how the operation is able to function at those lower rents. And
I know that you are going to have, some of the space is reserved for people with disability and special needs. Am I correct on that?
That's correct.
So you're going to have 20 spaces for psychiatric disabilities. Am I correct? So for those who do not know what psychiatric disabilities are, what are they?
So we work with people who have mental illness or a psychiatric disability. So what does that mean? We're talking about people who intellectually are pretty much on the same level that you and I are on. However, they may suffer from things like clinical depression, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder. So the housing that they will receive there at West Middle will provide them not only with a beautiful place to live, but they'll also receive support services from the agency. So we will have staff on site at West Middle School to work with the individuals and to make sure that they're getting to their appointments. And
so is this an integrated housing in the sense that you won't know which section? There will not be a section that will say for psychiatric disabilities. You're going to have, you said 50 units. They're going to intermingle. This is similar to what we do in housing for in a community.
Yes.
We're not trying to segregate in that only the disabled people live in 1 square block.
That's correct.
Okay.
Olmsted will prohibit that kind of housing, the Olmsted Act. So.
So with that, Unity House will move down there. It will move all of its operations?
We will move pure administration.
Okay.
We will leave our supported employment program will remain at 34 Wright Ave. Some of our other.
I know we call it the Blue Star Building, but it's the old Red Star Trucking Company.
That's right.
Okay.
For people who have lived
Blue
here
state,
a long
red
time,
state,
right?
we're not even
yeah,
gonna get into that.
yeah,
Okay.
that's right. That's true. So we'll keep primarily programs and services out of 34 Wright Ave, and then functions, finance, HR, quality assurance, those functions will move to West Middle. I will be moving to West Middle as well.
So for those who don't know, and I am surprised, we talked about this at the beginning, I am surprised we have not done a show on Unity House. What is Unity House?
Unity House is a nonprofit organization that provides predominantly housing and residential services to people with disabilities. We serve 3 different disability groups. We serve people who have substance use disorders, we serve people with psychiatric disabilities, and we serve people who have intellectual and developmental disabilities.
And you are more than at 34 Wright Ave. You also have Grace House fall under?
Grace House is part of Unity
So
House.
what, for those who may not know what Grace House, which is up towards Stryker Homes, what is that?
That is the halfway house for people who are in recovery from drug addiction or alcohol addiction.
And do you run other housing units also?
Yes.
How many?
I honestly couldn't tell you how many. I mean, we own several homes in Auburn, actually in Cayuga County.
And we should say this, you are not just a Cayuga County-based not-for-profit.
That's
correct.
correct.
What service area do you cover?
We're in the central New York region. We're in 6 counties. We're in Onondaga, Cayuga, Tompkins, Wayne, Ontario, and Seneca counties.
Okay, and so housing here that you will provide, is there, how many employees do you have overall for an agency?
At this point, the agency has 450 employees.
Mainly in Cayuga County or throughout?
I would say predominantly Cayuga and Tompkins. There's a 50-50 split.
And so for what you have, where do you get most of your funding from?
We are funded through the state. Medicaid is approximately 65% of our budget, and then the remaining 40% is contracts with New York State for certain services. Supported employment is a contract, and Grace House, I think, is a contract. But predominantly, we're like a fee-for-service organization, and we bill Medicaid.
And how large is your budget?
$20 million.
Okay. So you've partnered with 2+4. For those who may not know what 2+4 management is, what are you? Are you a for-profit, a not-for-profit? What kind of organization?
2+4 is a for-profit. We actually have 3 parts of the company. We have 2+4 Management, which is a professional property management company. 2+4 Construction, which actually is the contractor at West Middle School. And Lakewood Development, which is just our development arm. So we're kind of a one-stop shop when it comes to development. We come in, we identify the need in the community, we identify the site, the location that's best for the proposed project. We find partners such as Unity House, and we build it, and at the end of the day, we manage it.
So where are you based out of?
We're based out of East Syracuse.
Okay.
But we do have quite a presence in Auburn already.
Mm-hmm. So for many people, they may not know that 2+4 Construction did it, but there's a series of houses that went up a couple of years ago across from Checky Funeral Home,
Yes.
towards the Aurelius line on the west side of the city, past on Clark Street, past Michael's and the Hollywood. Mm-hmm. So what is that?
Well, Greenview Hills is much like this project. It's for families. That project has 2 and 3 bedroom units. They're townhouse style duplexes, so they're just in pods of 2. And again, that's for folks that are below the 60% of area median income, just like West Middle School would be.
And do you have 100% occupancy there?
We do. We do, and a healthy waiting list.
And when was that built?
Oh gosh, that's got to be at least 4 years old.
Okay. And do you have other projects in Cayuga County besides West Middle and that?
Yes, we also own and manage Auburn Heights and Northbrook Court here
Which
in
are
the city.
behind the what is now Planet Fitness. Or,
Mm-hmm.
depending on how old you are, it was Barker's at one point, but it's on the Grand Ave side of the city. Okay.
Yes.
How many employees do you have?
We have between the management and construction, we have 120 employees. And we've been in business doing just this affordable housing this is our 40th anniversary this year.
Okay.
It's ours too.
All right. So, well, okay, so that's a perfect segue. So how did you both get together? Forget the whole West Middle piece right now, but how did, my assumption is you two as an organization got together before you came up with the West Middle, or is it the other way around?
It's a really interesting story. We received a conditional award to do a mixed-use project that we actually had 15 slots for supported housing. And so we had to then go out and find a developer to help us secure the funding and design the building. And we were originally working with somebody in town locally, and we just couldn't seem to make things work. It just wasn't going anywhere financially. We couldn't find a location. And the individual I was working with, she suggested that I give Sue KIMMEL a call because she had a project that she had been trying to get through for, I guess, 2 years. Mm-hmm. And so I called Sue and I said, you know, so-and-so gave me your name, and here's what we have. And
okay, but you went from 15 to 3 plus times that.
Well, so we were awarded 15 slots for people with psychiatric disabilities. But the way the proposal worked is it needed to be a mixed-use project, and that's not something that Unity House is at all familiar with.
So you had never done anything with mixed use?
No, okay. Not at all. And so we went to somebody who was familiar with housing and development of housing. And so as we were looking at potential properties and land here in the community, we couldn't find anything that was going to be big enough that it would be financially viable.
So economies of scale was a factor.
Exactly. So then
go ahead.
I called Sue and said, this is Liz, this is what we have, and I think we met within the week and put a project together.
And had you done mixed use before?
We had. We had done a project in the city of Norwich with Shenango ARC, which provides services to the developmentally disabled. You know, we are great at housing, but we're not support service folks. And Unity House is great at the support servings, and they're not housing.
So it was a perfect mix.
So it was a perfect match.
Yeah.
So how did you figure out, okay, West Middle? You know, we talked, I led in at the beginning of the show, Central was the worry. That was the poster child for Cuyahoga County about you vacate a building and nobody wants it.
Mm-hmm.
We always work very closely with the city planning department. Mm-hmm. And we always reach out to them when we have a concept for a project and say, you know, what do you have? And they suggested that we take a look at West Middle. We had actually looked at it previously for a project, and we're not able to move forward on that project because we didn't have the money that Liz was able to bring to the project to make it work. So we went and we met with the superintendent and we took a look at the building. And fortunately, because of the size of the project and the $4 million that Liz was bringing to the table through the Office of Mental Health, then we were able to make it a viable project.
So we should just clarify, the $4 million was not just for the 15 slots, was it?
It is for the development of those.
So it was for long-term
beds.
construction. It was not just rent 15 units for 5 years.
No, it's the capital costs to renovating West Middle School.
So you went from city planning over to Thornton Avenue, and I'm sure Jeff Parazola, who we had on last week, and he raved about this when we had him on in April, most likely welcomed you with open arms.
He did. He did.
So what did the district need from you?
Well, we met with the Board of Education. They were very concerned about the building. They were very concerned about what the use would be for the building. So we spoke with the board and presented, along with Unity House, our concept. Then we also had to help the district because the district had debt already that was still sitting on the building.
So they couldn't just give you the building?
No, they could not.
Even you as a not-for-profit, they just couldn't they had some debt issues that they had to resolve, and those had to be dealt with at the end of 16, and kind of bled into 17. I know you were not always thrilled about that, but some of that bled into the new year. Am I correct?
Yes, correct.
So you now own the building, correct?
Yes, we paid
The
them
district
the
is
appraised
out.
value.
And what was the appraised value?
It was just over $1 million.
Okay, so how much is this project costing overall?
This is just over a $20 million project.
Okay.
To do the renovation.
So you've got $4 million at the table. You've already expended over $1 million for the building. So there's a little gap in there. Where's that all coming from? I'm not great at math, but I can get to 15, 16.
It actually is coming from several pots of money.
Yes.
One pot of money is coming from the New York State Housing Finance Agency in the form of the tax-exempt bonds that have in turn been sold to raise capital. There's low-income housing tax credits that have been sold to investors.
So you can
capital.
sell those to investors so that you raise capital.
So we raise capital debt-free.
Okay.
So again, and then the governor right now is pushing very hard for supportive integrative housing, and created a pot of money called the Supportive Housing Opportunity, and has funded that and committed to funding that for the next 5 years. So with those funds, in conjunction with the tax credits, we had some historic tax credits, which is
77-year-old building, you can most likely, so it's really a packaging deal when it comes to financing.
It is. It takes 5 or 6 different sources to pull it all together, and then we have to make sure that they play nicely together.
So you've obviously sold tax credits, you don't have to pay those back. What's the payback time period on your bonds? Or have you've sold those?
That we've sold the bonds.
Okay, so do you have to pay anybody back in this mix?
The only payment back is on the SHOP funds, the New York State funds, which is an 1% interest only.
And that's over?
It's over a 30-year period.
30 or 3?
30.
30, okay. Well, I'm assuming, will rents cover the cost of the operating cost, the year-to-year cost of this operation?
Yes.
I believe so, yes.
Okay, so between the 20, your 20 or your 15 to 20, plus the remaining 30 to 25, okay, 39, those will cover that. This project was not on the tax, we should be very clear, for 77 years it was not on the tax rolls. It is still not on the tax rolls?
It is on the tax rolls.
It is, so you will be
on the
paying,
tax rolls.
okay. So you didn't do did you do a pilot in the end?
We did not do a pilot. We
Why
did
not?
Pilots kind of are difficult in the public. I think the public has a misunderstanding when it comes to a pilot.
This is a payment in lieu of taxes
Payment
agreement.
in lieu, and the payment part is usually the part that people don't hear. They hear in lieu of taxes. But
don't you think in this community, when somebody would see you really reusing a wonderful building, that they would say, okay, we get it? Or you just didn't think, I have a friend named Mark Fandrick who says the juice is not worth the squeeze.
The time, it becomes a timing issue.
Okay.
You know, we have to make application. We have a short window to make that happen, and real property law in New York State does allow for a income approach, and we get to take out any required reserve deposits. So there is kind of a benefit on the books already by law. It's not a pilot, but it's still a tax benefit because of the tenants that we're able to rent to.
And when did you start construction?
We did start construction. We're actually scheduled to complete in mid-February, and with occupancy March 1st.
So your goal is 7 months from now you will be moving, and you will have.
Yes.
Have you started to put together a waiting list for the apartments and all?
Starting next week, applications actually will be available to those that are interested.
And so how does somebody follow up and get that information?
They simply just need to call our office at 1-800-838-0441.
And we'll do that at the end, but they can also, I'm assuming that signage will be down at Westminster,
Yes.
West Middle as well. You said that your staff's doing the work?
Correct.
Or are you subbing any of it out?
We do sub out. We act
Okay.
as the general contractor, and so we do sub the work out.
So your goal would be open for operations in when? February or March?
March 1st.
And will people, I guess selfishly for the community, will people get to walk through in advance? What's the game? How are you going to show this place off?
Well, we definitely want to bring the public in because we've done some things to the building that are kind of interesting. If the gymnasium space is a 2-story space and we needed the space on the 2nd floor to create some more units for the economies of scale. So we actually put in a steel structure and poured a concrete floor and created a 2-story space. That used
so
to
similar
be,
to what Central ended up doing this, but it
Yes.
was theirs was a very, you're doing it all at once, and,
Yes.
and I think the guys at Central who did a wonderful job kind of did it in tiers. Their thought was. So with that, the gym is being, so will you have other office space in the building? Is Unity House your only not-for-profit tenant, or are you going to be open for other not-for-profit tenants?
No, Unity House will be the only not-for-profit tenant, and then we'll have our on-site management team will be there as well.
And is there room for other offices there?
No.
Okay. I only asked that because the original, and I know this is a lifetime ago, there was a conversation originally before Health Central of putting all the not-for-profits in Central, and that was a big nut to crack for everybody. That was a long nut. Okay. So so let's talk about some of the pieces there. So that's the gym. You mentioned what's the MGR, the Merry-Go-Round Theater, what are they looking to use the auditorium for?
I think they're looking to use it for rehearsal space and perhaps performance space.
Because they have actors who live across the street.
Yes.
We should say that
Yes.
they
Yeah,
have
they do in that
so
apartment
for
building.
their actors' equity issues, that really helps them on their labor front. I said you two were coming on, and I moderated a panel with you 7 months ago. I think it was right when you were trying to get the state to give you a date for a meeting.
That's right.
And the most often asked question I got is the clock tower staying?
Clock tower is staying exactly as it is today.
And will it work?
I hope so.
Okay.
That's the goal.
Okay,
Yes.
because it's been stuck on the same time for even when the district owned it. It was not. It is a mechanism there. So your goal is to get that working as well.
That's our goal, but no guarantee.
So you have there's a lot of green space with that property. How many acres of land goes with this?
Well, all the ballparks that are out behind the building are included with the project. We have talked to the Y. The Y has expressed interest in using the baseball field. So again, kind of like the auditorium space, we're hoping to open it up for the community. There's a liability issue, obviously, that we have to address. But it's our goal to be able to have that space actively used by the community.
So let's take these pieces by pieces. Let's go back to the athletic fields for. If you come up with an operating agreement with the Y, they can manage and manage that and do that. Is that space that you would sell off? Is that space that you would like to see developed if it's not the Y? Or are you not there yet?
Well, I think we're not there yet. I think because we bought it was part of the parcel that the school was on, and the district wanted to sell the whole parcel rather than subdivide the building, and that gets complicated. So I think at this point, if the community could use it and we could have an agreement where we're covered, I think we're just happy to see the community use it.
So with the gym, there was obviously 2 locker rooms. There's a men's and there are boys and girls. Are they still there? Are you pulling those out?
They're gone.
Okay.
They're gone. They've
What went in their space?
apartments.
Okay. The terrazzo floor, as you walk in, has a map. I think it's the city of Auburn. County next door, I think that's the city of Auburn one. Is that still there?
So that would be the entrance right off of the auditorium. Yes, it is
Okay.
still there.
People have asked these interesting questions
sure.
who all.
Yeah.
Sure.
I will say, I went to school there, but I've heard a lot of people ask specific questions about, many people had a question about when the district moved to East because they had just renovated, made some major investments. Have you been able to keep most of those major investments that were made at West in the building, or did you have to pull things out?
We had to pull things out. We're required to put in new heating systems, new roof. It's part of the agency wanting to make sure that the useful life of the building stretches out to the 30 years of their mortgage. So the features that you're talking about, the lockers are still there. Lockers are still in place. We are under SHPO, the State Historic Preservation Office came in and said, this is what you must keep, and this is what you're allowed to redevelop.
So we should say the State Historic Office, which people have both mixed feelings about. They wouldn't let you take out the lockers. So what are you going to use Isn't that space you could have used for something? Even shelving.
Well, the lockers themselves are not operational.
Okay.
Because we have to have handicap railings, so they kind of go in front of the locker. So SHPA wanted the building so that people could walk in and do just what you're talking about, have memories, have it look like a school, remember certain places. This is not, we've done several schools before, and the neat story is the person who walks in and says, I want the apartment where my 3rd grade classroom was because it was my best year. So we will have those stories. We'll have people that are moving in that actually went to school there. So the goal was to keep it looking as it is when it was a school, with the classroom doorways or where they were.
So are you keeping the classroom doors and all that, or did you have to go? You have to come up with fire retardant and other doors. Okay.
Yes.
We talked about getting the public in there. When do you think this will be open for people to look at?
We're probably going to look mid to late February before we actually start physically moving people in the building. We'd like to be able to open the building up and have people have the ability to walk through and actually see the finished product.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that you may have an agreement with Merry-Go-Round. They may do some stuff. Will that auditorium be used for other public space events as well?
Because we're leasing it to them, they actually have control over the space. So
Okay.
if somebody wanted
I thought
to use
you had indicated you might, if they don't do it, you may rent it out for other.
Correct.
Because how many seats are in there?
Oh, I don't know. Do you know?
That's a 300,
It's
400.
it's a nice size,
Yeah.
and it's in great physical shape too.
Okay. So in the end, what do you hope to accomplish?
I think the goal of West Middle was to stabilize a population, to provide housing for the clients of Unity House, and to provide opportunities
Because
for,
there was a need. That needs
Yes.
there. Okay.
and the folks that are working that maybe can't afford their own apartment right now because there just isn't anything on the market in the rent range that we're offering.
And for Unity House?
And the other piece to that was there's predominantly single bedroom apartments in that building, because there is a need in this community for just 1-bedroom apartments. There's homes and 2- and 3-bedroom apartments much more readily available. For us, I think this journey, it's been a journey and a learning experience. However, at the end of the day, we will be able to provide housing to people with a psychiatric disability, some of the most vulnerable citizens of our community. And to have found somebody, a partner, to do this with, you know, I feel that we both have a lot to gain and learn from one another. And then to be able to take West Middle School and repurpose it is really, that's just a wonderful feeling for everyone.
And in your view, will there still be need for additional spaces for people with psychiatric disabilities?
Right now, our independent housing program, which is non-certified programming or housing, we have a wait list for 90 people.
Okay. And will there be community spaces in here for the single unit people to gather and do their own stuff?
Yeah.
There'll be a community room that has a
Okay.
full kitchen and tables, and then the courtyard inside the building has been turned into a tot lot for folks that might be a single mom, or we do have some 2-bedroom apartments, but that will provide a recreational area right in the center.
I vaguely remember a single tree growing in there. It was, and depending on your perspective, it might have been a weed. So we do want to thank Unity House's Liz Smith for joining us, as well as Susan KIMMEL from 2+4 Management and Construction. Good luck with the project.
Thank you.
If you want to come back on and give us an update at some point once you're all done, we'd love to have you on. This is a great project on the west end of the city of Auburn, and we're looking forward to seeing it up and running. We'll be back next week with our normal run of candidate forums. We start off next Thursday with the race for the county's 5th legislative district, which faces off incumbent Paul Pinckney, a Republican, against Melissa Jenkin, a Democrat. They'll be in the studio getting questions from Jeremy Boyer of The Citizen. And then the following week we will have Miss Gore, who is running in the Niles Moravia race. Her opponent, Mr. Ripley, has decided not to participate in that. They'll have a one-on-one conversation, or I will have a one-on-one conversation with Ms. Gore, and then we'll follow up with 3 other legislative races. one for the wheat sport, and then we'll move on to the two city legislative races. One is for an open seat that represents this area around the college, as well as a race that is in the center of the city between Mr. Lattimore and Mr. Nadzo. And then on Halloween, we will have our last of our forums. We have all four candidates agreeing to come into the studio to be questioned by Mr. Boyer as well. Then we return back in November to our normal run of shows of Beyond the Front Page and Inside Government. We'd like to let you know that you can give us your questions for those two shows at either cozguitho@aol.com or Inside Government, 141 Dunning Avenue, Auburn, New York, 13021. I'm Guy Cosentino for Cuyahoga Community College. We want to thank you for watching. We hope to see you back here in the studio as we start with our candidate forums next week. Have a good night and have a great tomorrow.